we are seeing a very diverse travel profile, and it's because we are diverse in essential meaning. So we offer different experiences for almost every type of travel.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our Travel Trends and Travelzoo Best Bets Destination Series for 2026. As you've heard over the last 6 episodes, we have been profiling the most amazing destinations to travel to in 2026 for both Americans and Canadians. And today is particularly special for me because it's off the Canadian list, but it is a truly global destination that I want all of our listeners to better understand, because we did a special spotlight episode on Colombia, the focus of today's discussion, late last year. It's more than 3 hours because we spoke to tour guides in Bogota, Medellin, and Cartagena, as well as 2 local tourism experts from Impulse Travel. And ProColombia, who is the tourism board that I have gotten to know over the last few years and have a great respect for, they brought me in to speak at their conference in Montreal, Canada. And one of our favorite listeners, a gentleman named Rodrigo Atuesta, who is based in Colombia, he attended that conference. We finally had a chance to meet in person. And after traveling to Colombia, he kindly asked me to join the board for Impulse. And I have been now multiple times, and I am a huge advocate of traveling to Colombia because it's a destination that has so much to offer in culture, community, cuisine. It's also a place that is being lifted up by tourism. It's incredibly safe to travel to Colombia. It has so much to offer. And it's one of the things that I wanted to highlight to all of our listeners, especially our Canadians, is that it has great value for money. Another big reason to consider traveling there in 2026, given our Canadian dollar and how far it goes in Colombia, as well as all of our American listeners with their American dollars and our European listeners with your euros. It is such an incredible destination. So I was thrilled when Travelzoo announced that Colombia was going to be part of the Best Bets series. And so I just wanted to share that context up front. And then I want to bring in our co-host now, Gabe Saglie, who's been hosting these episodes with me. I so enjoy the conversations we have. Gabe, we have discovered already a number of places that we're very keen to both travel to in 2026, including Finland and Chicago. I know I can't wait to get back to Colombia, which is a destination that you have not been to yet. So Gabe, very keen to bring you into the conversation. But just before I do, I just want to make sure all of our listeners know that we do post clips and highlights on all our social channels, which you can find on Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube at Travel Trends Podcast. And if you want to take advantage of any of these travel deals, you have to become a member of Travelzoo, which you can do at travelzoo.com, and it's starting from just $1 for your first month of membership. So definitely become a Travelzoo member. You can take advantage of all their top 20s earlier than anybody else. There's lots of benefits to being a member that you can find on travelzoo.com. And thanks again for being a subscriber and a listener to our Travel Trends podcast. We're so enjoying bringing this series to you every Tuesday, and we have a few more yet to come. But today, I'm so pleased to welcome my friend Gabe and to be able to have him introduce our guest from Colombia. Welcome back, Gabe. Great to have you with us again.
Listen, always a pleasure to shed the spotlight on my native South America. As you know, I'm a Chilean, and as a small kid, I got to visit Colombia with my parents. Now I need to go back as an older, more seasoned traveler, Dan. So I'm going to tap into your love for this country, and obviously, it's always great to see Colombia on the best bets list for 2026 from our Canadian team. 5 great destinations, and Colombia at the very top. As you know, Colombia, known as El País de la Belleza, as they say, the country of beauty. We're talking the Caribbean Sea to the east, the Pacific Ocean to the west. You've got the Andes, the Amazon, 6 distinct regions, premium experiences on the rise there, connectivity, in particular out of Canada, on the rise as well, and travel appeal year-round. So, obviously, no surprise that Colombia is on Travelzoo's Best Bets list for 2026, and it is a pleasure to actually head right to Bogota, the capital of Colombia, and welcome our guest today, Dan. She is María José Silva. She's the leisure tourism manager at ProColombia. We'll kind of talk to her over the course of the show today as to why Colombia would be happy having a moment, in particular in 2026, and what travelers can expect to discover in this beautiful country. Perhaps you haven't been in a couple of years. Perhaps you're going for the first time. What is new? What is happening? What's exciting in the country of beauty? Maria, welcome to the show. And I thought we could start off by talking a little bit about ProColombia in particular. I know you've been with ProColombia for many years, so a little bit about your role and sort of what you see as exciting and new and fresh in your beautiful country there for 2026 in particular.
Thank you, Dan, Gabe, for this invitation. It's a pleasure to me to be here. I've been almost 20 years in ProColombia, so in this month I'm in my 20th anniversary and 7 years in this sector that we love, the tourism sector. We are in ProColombia, the agency, the tourism board. We depend on the Ministry of Trade, Industry, and Tourism. And we promote international the country as a world-class tourism destination. That is the focus that I have. We have the job to build strong relations with all the communities, airlines, media, agencies, advisors. So I'm very excited to be here to count a lot about our country, the country of beauty, as you mentioned then, and how Colombia is going to be one of the big bets for this year that we are starting.
Hola, Maria, and gracias. I'm so thrilled that you're here, and I'm really keen for this conversation. As our listeners heard from my introduction about my experience traveling to Colombia, the board that I'm on at Impulse Travel, and my great respect for ProColombia and the team that I've got to meet and get to know at many industry conferences. And so for me, when I traveled to Colombia, and Gabe already mentioned the country of beauty. I mean, part of it that just from my perspective, it had so much to offer and it took so long for me to get to Colombia. And it was one of those realizations like that there's so much misconceptions about this destination, things about safety or just the tourism economy in Colombia is growing dramatically. And the types of experiences you can have in Colombia, given all the regions, the diversity of culture, music and food. And I can't wait to get back, as our listeners heard. But what I wanted to ask you is that why now for Colombia in 2026? I want to start with that question because I know, especially for Canadians, there are more routes being opened up to travel to Colombia. And every time I see an update that all of a sudden Air Canada, Transat, or WestJet, or all of a sudden Air Transat's doing direct flights to Cartagena from new cities like Toronto or Montreal, I send that to the team at Impulse. I'm like, look, yes, more Canadians are coming to Colombia. And so that's one reason I see 2026 is the air capacity and some of the flight deals. But obviously, there's many reasons why Colombia in 2026 is a great destination. One other one is value for money that always stands out to me, like some of the experiences you can have in Colombia and how far your Canadian dollar goes, because oftentimes it doesn't go as far traveling directly south of the border in the US. So I see many reasons it's great for Canadians. What would you say would be some of the big reasons why Colombia in 2026?
Thank you. This really is the right moment for visiting Colombia because it's a destination that is trending in not only in Canada, in a lot of countries. For example, last year in 2025, we have the numbers from January to November, and we welcome almost 6 million visitors, international travelers, and over the past 4 years, almost 20 millions. That are great numbers for us. Besides also the pandemics and the effort that we have been doing for changing the image that we had in international markets. That is the moment. We are in the right moment to visit Colombia. We have been in a profound transformation over more than a decade, and the numbers are responding to that positively. Tourism has, you mentioned air connectivity. Almost 90% of our international visitors arrive by this way. So it's an important part of our work to work very closely to the airlines. And for a macroeconomic context, also it's important to say that we are the 5th largest economy in Latin America, and we are leading in all the numbers, not only tourism, in economic growth. So this is the moment to visit Colombia. This is the moment we have been working a lot And also, for example, to make some mentions, we have leading publications that are telling all international visitors that we are in the right moment. For example, Lonely Planet, Condé Nast, or Forbes have positioned Colombia as one of the most visited destinations for this year. So these recognitions validate our country, the transformation that we have enforced, and positioning also the Colombian tourism as a high quality, sustainable quality destination.
And I always find it fascinating, Dan, how closely a team like this, a ProColombia team, would work with airlines to make sure that consumers have that easy access. Sometimes all it takes is that nonstop flight, and all of a sudden a destination becomes that much more accessible. I'm here in Southern California, so I'm excited to see the day when we get these nonstop flights down to Colombia. I know it's currently a one-stop flight for us here, but a lot of appetite for South America, and certainly the last couple of years for Colombia as well, out of Southern California. Now, I'm someone who needs to tap into Dan's enthusiasm and actually get myself down there as sort of an adult, more seasoned traveler. And what I find fascinating, Maria, is this idea of the diversity of Colombia. We've thrown around this phrase, the country of beauty. We've got oceans on both sides. We've got the Amazon, the Andes, the deserts, the cloud forests. You sort of talk about Colombia as six distinct regions. When you're talking to the new traveler to Colombia, how do you tackle the breadth of experiences across these diverse six regions? Are you looking at these six regions individually? Do you embrace them as a whole? And are you seeing some regions perhaps that are starting to emerge from the shadows? We know about Bogota, we know about Medellin, but there's some wonderful hidden treasures, even for those like Dan, who have been to Colombia a couple of times.
Yes, the first part of my answer is to mention that Colombia, the country of beauty, is our country brand. And it's like an umbrella, we mentioned that covers also the promotion of exports in foreign direct investment and tourism. That are all the subjects that ProColombia manage. And the simple way to explain diversity to travels, where in terms of the place, we have extraordinary landscapes, cultures, the biodiversity that come together in only one destination. And with the strategy of the 6 tourism regions, we are offering all of them, from glaciers to Caribbean beaches, to jungles, to deserts, to forests, the coffee mountains. Colombia truly feels like 6 countries into one. Each region has its own identity, shaped by geography, culture, and people that are our trends. And the diversity is rooted in the fact that Colombia contains 10% of the planet's biodiversity. We have also the numbers ones in, for example, bird species and butterflies and orchids in the world. More than 300 ecosystems, and in only South America, the country is the only country that has access to the Pacific and the Atlantic Ocean. What makes this experience even more unique, for example, is that we have, in terms of culture, some UNESCO heritage, for example, vibrant cities, world-class gastronomy, living traditions, places like Sierra Nevada, Santa Marta, that is considered an irreplaceable place on Earth, a lot to see. So each region is a whole diverse.
And one thing I want to just talk about right at the beginning is the first-time traveler. Since Gabe, you mentioned, you haven't been to Colombia yet. So many of our listeners are going to be in exactly the situation. They're listening to this episode because they're intrigued by Colombia. It seems exotic. It's interesting, but they really have either a misunderstanding of the destination, which is all too common, and they don't really understand all the amazing attributes. And you've mentioned quite a few there, Maria, and I wanted to dive into that first-time traveler and just to share my experiences. I mentioned the introduction, but more specifically, the itinerary that we decided to embark on, which we went to Bogota, where you're based, and which was an ideal way to start from my perspective, even though people are concerned that it's such a big city. we were going to the farmers markets, and what we discovered is that Colombia has the most diversity of fruit in the world, and it's like the only country in the world where that could actually sustain itself based on how much you can actually cultivate within the country itself. And we went to Medellin, and we went to Cartagena, and there are three completely distinct different places. Like, and it's such a hard thing that people ask me, what was your favorite? I'm like, I loved all three, and I really wouldn't have done that first trip any differently. I'm like, Cartagena for the coastline and the cuisine, and but Medellin, where so many people are gathering, especially global nomads that have seemed to have, taken over the city. But there's such great value for money. There's amazing restaurants. As people joke, it's the only thing that's missing is the beach. But it also has so many incredible neighborhoods to be able to explore. And these cable cars, like traveling to Colombia really opened my mind. And so I wanted for you to share what you see as your recommendations for a first-time traveler. Where would you recommend they go? How much time would you recommend they take? Because I think it's one of those things, we could have just gone to Cartagena. I know some people do that because they go for more of a beach holiday. So tell us a little bit about the first-time traveler. What recommendations would you have for them?
It's difficult for me to pick one region, and I have to be politically correct because we promote Colombia. We don't promote one region. So each region has different styles. So we have to first know the traveler to can do an accurate information. Some travelers maybe like beaches, but some wants more adventure, some wants more, biodiversity, authentic community. So depends on the type of visitor that we are talking about.
The diversity is so interesting, and then not only as a destination, but we always love to sort of peg certain trends to sort of predict, where American and Canadian travelers are going. And certainly when we talk about this kind of diversity that we've been mentioning, wellness travel, cultural travel, nature-inspired travel, weddings and romantic escapes. Are there certain trends that you are seeing these days, Maria, that are resonating in particular with a North American audience, with Canadians, Americans, that are encouraging airlines to therefore invest in greater access in 2026? What are some of these trends? What are these travelers looking for that they're finding in Colombia that allows you to that much more effectively promote your destination?
I think there are two main purposes. The meaningful journey is of course, a must in today's travelers. So feel the diverse, the authentic, the community, that the community tourism with meaningful diversity. The destination with sustainable practices. It's also a trend that we are looking and we are promoting, and a responsible tourism that protects the communities and also the nature that has social and environment zero impact. That I think that are the trends: meaningful travel and diversity, sustainable practices.
Yeah, the concept is interesting, meaningful travel. And I think we've been talking about that at Travelzoo in the last couple of years. I know we've touched on this, Dan, in previous episodes, this idea that we are responsibly going to a destination so that our impact is careful and it is thoughtful. I think that translates to the kinds of experiences that we're seeking. So we don't want to just be observers from a distance. We do want to delve in. We do want to connect with the local environment and with the people who live in these destinations. That emotional impact, I think, by being thoughtful travelers when we get there and just expanding our horizons by delving carefully into these cultures is I feel like is something that Colombia does quite well.
Also, I think that the technology is also shaping how you travel and how to discover not only Colombia, the whole travel in the world. Digital platforms, are driving all the recommendations and highlights before you travel. So you have to be very close to technology nowadays.
And I know we're going to touch on sustainability here in just a moment, but Dan mentioned value for the money a couple of times here, which I think is important at all budget levels. And I think one of the trends that we're certainly eyeing here is the luxury travel sector, those people seeking premium experiences, the willingness and desire to invest a little bit more on sort of unique, above the sort of the normal fray types of moments and memory making experiences. What can you say about that sort of five-star sector of the travel industry that at the end of the day is still looking to stretch the travel dollar? Does the value that we associate with Colombia include even those sort of more well-heeled and sort of savvier travelers?
We have our own luxury. I think luxury in Colombia is less about opulence, it's more about exclusivity and authenticity, and offer people deep experiences that connect with travelers to our culture, to our people, to our natural environments. For high-end travelers, we can have some examples. We have a private village, a private islands, safaris in the Amazonia and Orinoco region, but it's our luxury as we know it usually.
And I want to actually give one example of that, Gabe, because this is what really blew my mind when I was in Colombia. And many of our American friends may be familiar with a restaurant called El Cielo, a very famous chef named Juan Manuel Barrientos created this restaurant. There's one in Miami, there's one in Washington, but there's one, importantly, where he's from, in Medellin. And this restaurant we went, my wife and I, the two of us, we had an 18-course meal. Every serving was paired with a wine or a beverage. And this is the place that's also famous for the chocolate that that melts in your hands. And then it's such an incredible experience watching people in this fine dining restaurant all of a sudden like eat chocolate with their hands. It's become viral on social media. And, the total bill was about $200, and it would have been $1,000 in the US. And so this was one of the things like, oh my goodness, but and the quality and it was a fantastic fine dining experience, and it was very luxurious, and it was a real kind of like splurge on our trip. But in the grand scheme of things, we would pay for that going out for a dinner in Toronto and have nowhere near the experience. So that's for me one of those that stands out as kind of value for money. But one of the things I wanted to ask you about, Maria, before we get into community, because community is very near and dear to my heart, and it's part of the reason that I'm involved with Impulse Travel, since I believe in their mission around bringing travelers to Colombia for the right reasons and to alleviate some of the social problems that have existed and give more opportunities. So tourism is very much a force for good in Colombia. But it really starts with how you get connectivity. So before we talk about community, I want to talk about connectivity, because when people are thinking about a destination, they're thinking about, why should I go now? Which is why it's always my first question. And it's like, what should I do? Like, what does my first trip look like? And it's like, how do I get there? And I worked at Lonely Planet for a number of years. I know Lonely Planet's recognized Colombia now a number of times as a top destination to travel to. And those for me, like when you open up a guidebook, that how you get there is always important, because if it's too difficult, too complicated, and the reality is it's getting easier and easier to get to Colombia. So any of my friends and colleagues have said to me, well, how do you fly there? I'm like, Air Canada? Or Air Trans. Like, really? I'm like, yeah. Like, actually, I've flown Avianca twice, and Avianca is part of Star Alliance, and I still get my status miles. So I've actually also flown through Colombia on my way to Chile and stopped over in Bogota, because all of a sudden I have friends there, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to stop in Colombia. And so tell us a little bit about the flight routes that, as you understand them, for Canadians or even Americans, as Gabe mentioned as well. But tell us some of the direct routes and some of the air capacity and how that's expanding in 2026.
Great. I have to mention that we are geographically in the middle of America. So, for example, Bogota is a hub for air connectivity. So that stopover for Chile that you have mentioned is perfectly possible. And we invite you to stay, not only pass, you have to stay. And in air connectivity, has been one of our main or central issues in the tourism growth. We have, as I already said, 90% of international visitors arriving by this way. And for example, the expansion of air connectivity last year, 2025, includes 22 new routes that were launched, and around 29 airlines are operated direct flights to Colombia at this moment. So we have great connectivity, and we are in the middle of Americas. For Canadian travelers specifically, connectivity has improved a lot in the past years. We are only 5 hours of distance. That also is attractive by a direct flight. In year around, the service includes that you already mentioned, Toronto, Bogota with Avianca and Air Canada, as well as Montreal, Bogota with both airlines, both carriers. And seasonally, during your winter, November to April, there are direct options also. Toronto, Cartagena, Medellin with Air Transat, Montreal, Cartagena with Air Transat also, and Montreal, San Andres Island with Sunwing. So we have a lot of options, and we are very close.
I appreciate that. Sunwing, of course, is now owned by WestJet. And so this is where there's so much capacity.
And also WestJet in summer.
Yeah, and that's the part that amazed me. There's also the seasonality, as you just pointed to there. And the one other thing I just wanted to highlight for all of our listeners, and it relates to what you just mentioned, Maria, about where you're geographically located. It's only a 5-hour flight. And it's 5 hours to get to Vancouver from Toronto. And it's but when you look on a map and you think that flying that far south versus flying that far west, it's just well, the world is round, and it's really, it's a sphere. So it looks further on a map than it actually is. And so for me, a 5-hour flight to get to Colombia is very manageable. But yeah, Gabe, I want to talk about community and sustainability. Those are things that, and you were asking Maria about some of the big trends. Obviously, wellness is so important, but people are looking for a deeper connection in the destinations that they're choosing to travel to. They're much more aware of the impact they're having. And ultimately, one of the things I've been talking about this year is transformative travel. I see transformation. Everyone's seeking it, whether they realize it or not. They're seeking to come back from their travel experience, change or impacted in some way. And you don't get that from just necessarily having a beach vacation or being on a cruise ship. So, but being in a destination like Colombia and moving around different cities and experiencing different cultures and the music, I'm not even a huge music, but I fell in love with the music in Colombia. I'm like, oh my God, we did a music, we got to go to a musician's house and we got to play different instruments. And I all of a sudden learned all the diversity of music in Colombia, given all the different ethnicities and backgrounds. It's it really is that's something else that was so special. But yeah, I'm keen to know what Gabe was asking is a bit more about the community type experience that people can expect from Colombia, how warm and hospitable everyone is, and also the types of experience you can have in destination that will have a meaningful impact on you so that you come back, feeling changed or, truly benefiting from that getaway.
Community-based tourism is one of our strengths. I think that is a political strength that the government has, and every government has it. Not this actual government, the past government also has an important strength in community-based tourism, and it has been transformative across Colombia. In many regions, especially those that were isolated or overlooked for a lot of years, tourism has created a transformative new way of life. And it's very important to us, that part, because it generates jobs, strengthens local economies, empowers communities to perceive their cultural and natural heritage. So, for example, we have indigenous communities in the Amazon or in the Sierra Nevada, the northern part of our country. Also, they are very important. Rural landscapes in the coffee region. And also, for example, you mentioned music. Impulse Travel has a very interesting package in music, based music of the Vallenato. I don't know if you have already done that, the tour date. It's amazing. It's 15 days of music and visit the northern part of the Caribbean of Colombia.
And a big part of this, Maria, as you know, is is not just having these experiences, but then as a traveler, having access to them. So, are you seeing a growing list of things like eco-friendly lodging options, certified sustainable tour operators, just a growing number of that sort of that link between the traveler and the experience that just is making these kinds of moments that much more accessible, just that much easier to access?
Yes, we have a lot of examples of that. For example, the Magdalena River Luxury Cruises has also a community-based, a sustainable-based tourism, and it was launched last year with two bottles, and it had been like the return of navigability in the river. So the communities are encouraged to know that they have a new type of way of life. So that's the way the tourism is transformation lives.
And you mentioned, if I may, just San Andres Island. I actually do have a friend who visited San Andres Island last year and said, this rivals, from an experiential standpoint, a lot of Caribbean resorts that in destinations that perhaps people associate with these kinds of, tropical escapes a little bit more, but that the experiences on the ground were that much more meaningful and easy to access. Tell us a little bit about San Andres Island. I had to go to the map and see exactly where it was and dig in a little bit deeper because I had not heard of it before. But to me, that's an example of a destination that I think appeals to people who are seeking these sort of familiar escapes, a Caribbean-inspired or sort of tropical destination, but with a much deeper, much more layered experience, or at least options of experiences on the ground.
San Andres is in the northern part of our country and is in the Caribbean Sea. And it's not only San Andres, it's San Andres, Providencia, and Santa Catalina. And for example, it's a very important sport for dive. And also is the second largest barrier reef. Only Australia is the first one, so it's the second largest. So dive is very important for San Andres, and protect that area is also a challenge and a purpose of our country. No?
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to highlight was when you think about Cartagena, where you have the second largest coral reef in the world, which I've lived in Australia, and I've snorkeled. I'm not a scuba diver, so I'm an avid snorkeler, but I've been to the Great Barrier Reef, and I've also experienced the Caribbean coast in Colombia. And one of the things, and it's one of the reasons I wanted to ask you, Maria, is about Cartagena and the rest of Colombia, is because I know some travelers may be tempted only to go to Cartagena and experience the Caribbean coast and to be able to go to the islands. And that in and of itself is a trip that everyone should do. And I just wanted to share my quick experience with my wife, because we went, the two of us, and we had like kind of a romantic getaway that the team booked us in on there's the Rosario Islands. And we stayed on Barrow Island, and we stayed in this incredible treehouse. And the coolest thing about this treehouse, it was incredibly luxurious, still very reasonably priced, but it was a bit of the splurge. But we went for it because we knew that we wanted to be able to see the beautiful scenery, the turquoise waters, the beautiful white sand beaches. But what I didn't expect is that in our treehouse, it was going to have a Japanese flushing toilet, which is like the ultimate in luxury. I'm like, how did they get a Japanese toilet in the top of a treehouse? It was like two extremes. And it's one of the things the team there had been telling me, that there are more luxury, like Four Seasons is opening in Cartagena. And I think one of the terms that you guys are utilized is contemporary luxury. And that to me would be a great example of that. Like that was a very luxurious experience. The food and the cuisine was amazing. And the place we stayed was extraordinary. And I think that's what travelers, like that's one type of traveler. So where I'm going with this question, Maria, is the types of travelers that Colombia appeals to. So couples, for sure. We're now keen to take our kids back because they're like, why didn't you take us? So we need to do a family trip to Colombia. There's clearly lots of solo travelers. I know with some of the group tour companies, Colombia is a top destination for companies like Intrepid or G Adventures that run small group trips in Colombia. Tell us a little bit more about the types of travelers that you're seeing and marketing to that are choosing Colombia.
We are seeing a very diverse travel profile, and it's because we are diverse in essential meaning. So we offer different experiences for almost every type of traveler. And if we want to point in Canadian market specifically, we are seeing a strong interest from active couples who are drawn by nature, culture, sustainability experiences, and most of them are visiting regions such as the Great Caribbean that you have mentioned, where is located Cartagena, also the Andes, Western and Eastern, and also combining with outdoors activities and gastronomy and cultural immersion.
I was going to say, Dan, it's funny that you mentioned your kids because I've got 3 kids ages 10 through 20. And as time has gone, especially in the last couple of years, they're now familiar with destinations that have been sort of specific to travel between me, with me and my wife. These are little romantic escapes or getaways. But they're now, hey, it's time for us to come visit some of these places that you as mom and dad have visited over the years. Now we're becoming savvier travelers. We want to visit these destinations as well. And so that's the kind of travel that I'm planning much more now is family of 5 travel that is going to be certainly meaningful for me and my wife as people who've traveled so many places all over the world. We're always wanting to discover something new, but something that's also going to make an impact to my 10-year-old daughter, to my 17, 20-year-old sons, and as a family as a whole. Do you see this and multi-generational travel, Maria, as you know, is something that those of us from South America are super familiar with, but Canadians and Americans, we're seeing greater numbers of multi-gen travelers heading down there. Can Colombia offer an impactful travel experience to multiple generations, 2 or 3 at least, traveling together?
Yes, of course. As I already said, we have been seeing that we offer different types of products for diverse travelers. So we can offer for couples, for family, for solo travelers, for women, Afro also. So Colombia is so diverse that we can receive diverse travelers.
And that's one of the things that stood out to me about being in the Caribbean. It's a very different traveler in Cartagena than we saw in Bogota and Medellin. And I'm keen to explore more of Colombia. But one of the other things that stood out to me, too, that I was keen to ask you about is supporting local communities. And so I saw that in every destination I traveled to. In Bogota, we did a Breaking Borders tour where, former gang members are now moved into the tourism industry and they run tours. And there's all of a sudden safety in their community. And so it was really wonderful to have that sense of being able to affect positive change with your tourism dollar, to know that you're having a positive impact. So that is more important to travelers similar to me. But even the places we kept traveling to, whether it be the coffee plantations or even the chocolatiers that are bringing people into these roles from other agricultural positions and creating new opportunities for them. So this idea of Colombia as being a leader in conscious travel, not only, sustainable, but for me, it's wonderful that there are natural parks and there's protected reserves, but it's the people for me. Like people, planet, profit is like, it's people and the planet. And so tell us a little bit about how ProColombia and the travel companies you work with, how you prioritize providing a benefit to local communities. And I'll just say one last example, because a friend of mine went to Colombia over the Christmas holidays and went to go see the Lost City and was telling me, "Oh my God, you have to go to the Lost City. It's like it's like Machu Picchu but better because nobody's there and no one else has heard of it yet, and it's still being discovered." And this is where Colombia still keeps having these places that are opening up, and obviously that's changing the reality for that local community. It's lifting them up and giving them opportunities they may not have had, that enables them to have local schools. And so tell us a little bit about the community connection on the ground in Colombia and how ProColombia helps facilitate that.
I would like to start with the Lost City trek that you have already mentioned, which is truly outstanding and deeply moving. It's a highlight you have to do if you like trekking and nature, and also like heritage. It's close to Santa Marta. It's a northern city in our country, the Sierra Nevada Santa Marta, and is recognized as the most irreplaceable places in Earth. So we have a snow peak rise dramatically, and besides the Caribbean Sea. So you have to go for your next journey to the lost city. And in terms of sustainability and communities, it's important to mention that as one of the most biodiverse countries in the world, Colombia understands that has that responsibility in our hands, and conservation is our priority. Colombia is one of the 12 countries around the world that has a public policy for sustainability tourism. And we have working in a plan for 2030 that includes promotion, and is based on all the promotion is based with sustainable and community basis. So we promote certifications, high standards, high capacity building in programs with local operators. So Colombia has a commitment to sustainability and to community that is definitely a must in our country.
Hey guys, we've mentioned a couple of times here, Dan, coffee plantations. And as life has gone on for me, I wake up earlier and earlier as the years go by. Coffee has become a really good friend of mine, and I've become finickier with the coffee that I drink. For first-timers, Maria, how prevalent is the coffee experience on a day-to-day basis for the Colombian? And are you seeing coffee and the coffee experience, whether it's visiting a plantation or just sitting down in front of a cup of coffee across from a local perhaps? How important is coffee to the culture there? And what can we expect of the first-timers who might love this wonderful elixir? How prevalent is it as we travel across this beautiful country?
We have coffee almost in all the states or departments in Colombia, not only in the coffee region that we mentioned that like for promoting reasons that are 3 states, but we have coffee plantations in almost the whole country. So it's very important for Colombia. It has been done an important promotion, decades promotion of the Federación Nacional de Cafeteros, the brand Juan Valdez. I think that it's worldwide known.
Mm-hmm.
And we have made a good job in joining the agricultural and the essence of the plantation with the visiting of the coffee crops and all the culture around it. So it's Colombia's coffee, and I think it's very important for promotion of.
And how do you, as a Colombiana, drink your coffee? Because I love mine. Like I'm heavy on the milk or the cream. Is it a café con leche? What is the most common way of enjoying a couple of cups of coffee every time you sit down for a little caffeine?
Just black, no sugar.
Oh, you drink it black. Okay.
No.
Good to know.
I got to jump in on this one, Gabe, because I am not a coffee drinker. It was not one of the reasons that I initially was as enthusiastic about traveling to Colombia. It wasn't one of the drivers for me because I'm a tea drinker. I was raised by English parents. But here's the interesting thing. What I discovered is I don't like coffee, but I love Colombian coffee. And the reason is it's what Maria said. So we went to do coffee tasting. My wife likes coffee; she has it every morning. And so I was like, "This is for her more so it's for me." But I was like, "I'll go along. I'll taste the different coffees, and I'll go along and understand the different beans." And I was like, what I discovered though is that the quality of the bean is so incredibly important. Obviously, coffee drinkers, you guys all know this, but the Colombian coffee bean does not require cream or sugar to be added to it in its most pure form. There was a slight sweetness. And I was like, so I drank coffee the entire trip because I need my caffeine. And so I fell in love with Colombian coffee and was there. And then the other thing I just wanted to highlight, because we wanted to bring gifts back for everybody. And we saw it, such a big part of the culture in Colombia, both coffee and chocolate. And who doesn't love those? And so everywhere that we made an effort to purchase both coffee and chocolate that were from these community-led initiatives that were, and that was like, you get the story and the background and the impact it's having. And so you felt really good about, I always try and buy souvenirs that are handmade or make sure that it's like you're giving back in some way. So yes. So Gabe, I still have some Colombian coffee. I can hook you up.
Fantastic.
And I know when ProColombia is at any conference because they always bring coffee and it's like I'll take a bag. Thank you. I'm speaking. Can I also get one? It's like so it is such an important part of the culture. But I know we're coming close to time. There's just a couple other questions we wanted to ask you, Maria, why we have you here with us. And one of them is very much along the lines of traveling to Colombia in 2026 and knowing that there are so many amazing places to explore. We've talked about why and what you can do and how you can get there. For you, I know you cannot be biased, but tell us some of the things that are happening in Colombia in 2026 that might be of particular interest. And what I'm specifically asking is when to go. Are there festivals or events that are happening throughout the year that people should plan their travels around?
Yes, it's a difficult choice for me, as I already mentioned, because Colombia offers a lot of experiences, unforgettable moments. But if I had to choose one, maybe bird watching is another must experience. We are number one in bird species. Twice a year, the Cornell University does like a concourse, and a lot of years we have been number one in bird species. So maybe that will be one experience that I recommend. And culturally speaking, maybe you ask for festivals. Flower Fair in Medellin in August is very beautiful. Also the Barranquilla Carnival that is starting in the States. That will be also a good way to know our culture, our joy, our music. So that are a few experiences that I can recommend to you.
And may I ask if I could, because you're in Bogota, the capital of Colombia, 11, 12 million residents, and I know that you can't be biased, but as a local in Bogota, a lot of us probably, as first timers, it's probably going to be the first place that we fly into to access the rest of the country. Is there one spot in your city that you love? Any secret hot spots for you as a local that you would say, hey, you got to check out this place to eat, or this beautiful park, or this destination in this gorgeous city of Bogota?
I think we are in a city. We have a city that is high in altitude. We are 2,600 meters, and there's a church. Like I think it's like 3,000 meters above sea level, that is called Monserrate, that you have an excellent view, 2 excellent restaurants, and have a unique experience looking around the whole city.
Okay, I got my first half day plan there, Dan, in Bogota.
Okay.
Well, one of the things I learned, Gabe, for our bird watching is like you got to be up early in the morning, really early, and for some of the birds, before the sun even rises, to make sure you can see like the Santa Marta parakeets and like some of the bird life is extraordinary. I love hummingbirds. And like the hummingbirds are in such abundance. And so bird watching, it's another one of those things I was like, I guess I love bird watching now too. Like it's like early morning coffee, watching birds. It's just like,
you're like a new man when you go to Colombia, Dan. Look at you.
Yeah, exactly. I could honestly spend a few months of every year in Colombia. And being a Canadian, I think you know what months those would be. I'll see you guys from January till March every year. But this has been such a fantastic conversation, Maria. I really appreciate you joining us. We want to make sure that all our listeners know where they can find out more information about ProColombia, with partners, travel agents that want to work with you, book a trip for their clients, and also where travelers should go if they're interested in just learning more information about Colombia. Obviously, they have the Travelzoo website, and becoming a member is really important to get some of these deals. But where should they go to get more information about ProColombia and to learn more about Colombia?
Thank you so much for the invitation, for this amazing conversation. And I have to end also saying that we have recently launched a dedicated training program for Canadian Travel Pro that allows them to become certified in Colombian travel agency specialists. So it's an invitation for being part to this amazing alliance that we have recently made. And also for more information, we have our website, Colombia.travel, where you can find all the information of the destination, the 6 regions that we have been going through this conversation, all the partnerships that we have, all the events that we are assisting. So that will be an excellent way to know more about Colombia, our webpage.
Muchas gracias, María José. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, both of you. Un placer.
Un placer. Gracias.
Thanks so much for joining us on this Best Bets Destination Series episode between Travel Trends and Travelzoo to spotlight the most incredible destinations to travel to in 2026. As you heard, this episode was particularly special for me because I'm a huge fan of traveling to Colombia, and I definitely encourage all of the listeners that enjoyed this episode to check out our special spotlight episode. You can find that on traveltrendspodcast.com/spotlights. Look for the episode on Colombia. And then you can also find it very easily on Spotify or Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Now that you've been inspired to travel to Colombia, make sure that you get your Travelzoo membership for 2026. If you don't have it already, you can subscribe for as little as $1 for the first month. You can find out more information at travelzoo.com. I, of course, wanted to say thank you again to Maria for joining us and to Gabe for co-hosting. I always enjoy our conversations together, Gabe, and I'm looking forward to experiencing some of these destinations together over the course of 2026 and beyond. And then don't forget, we do post clips and highlights on our social channels, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And we are releasing episodes every Tuesday with our friends over at Travelzoo. So make sure you're registered on the streaming platform of your choice to be notified when new episodes go live. And we have another exciting one for you next week. We're heading up to Canada in my backyard and headed to Niagara-on-the-Lake. So that will be a really interesting one, whether it's the winter or summer. It's another year-round destination. And for our friends across the border, it's a great place to come and visit Canada any time of the year. So we'll look forward to bringing you that special episode next week. But thanks again for joining us. And until next week, safe travel.